Man, I miss my Uncle Georgia.
Lovecraft Country, Episode 7. Yes, Hippolyta, finally. She's scribbling permutations trying to figure out the mystery to unlock Hiram's Ori. She loves astronomy, and we see her moving the planets into different alignments trying to make it work. We cut to 3 days earlier. Hippolyta and Diana made it to the ruins of the Ardham Lodge, where Tick opened the portal to the Garden of Eden and Uncle George was killed by Samuel Braithwaite. They know where to go based on George's atlas that they found in the glove box of Woody. Now they are searching the still smoldering ruins, but Diana has a bad feeling about this place and rightfully thinks it could be related to her father's death. While searching the ruins, she finds a tattered page from Corinthia Blue, the comic book Diana drew for George. She knows he was here. Back in present day, Hippolyta is ready to give up on the Ori when she sees it on its side and realizes the planets she's trying to align need to tilt based on how they rotate on their axis. She aligns them again, and this time it works. The Ori glows and is operating, and a key emerges from the top. Beneath it is an inscription. Underneath are coordinates. Coordinates will continue throughout the episode. These are the coordinates of Hiram Epstein's machine and the key to unlock it. After the opening credits, we go to Christina and Ruby in the basement of her estate. The cadavers of William and Dell are lying on a table, their blood being drained from them to create the potion that allows transformation. Ruby confronts Christina for lying to her from the moment they met, but Christina explains that the words she spoke may have come from William's mouth, but they were hers. Captain Lancaster did try and succeeded in killing William. She explains the Order of the Ancient Dawn to Ruby and how women aren't allowed to join. Her father refused to teach her how to wield magic, so she sought William out to seduce him into teaching her. As she learned from William and completed his transformation spell, her ambitions grew beyond just impressing her father. She wanted more for herself, which Ruby can relate to. Ruby wants Christina to tell her the truth and the whole truth, which involved her family and lost pages from the Book of Names. We cut to a familiar dream sequence of Hannah, pregnant, escaping the burning Braithwaite Lodge with the Book of Names in tow. This time it's Letty having the dream, and she's pregnant in the dream too. She heads down to the basement to find Atticus fresh off his call with J.R., brooding over the pages he's deciphered so far. He embraces and kisses Letty before explaining to her he's translated about half the pages they recovered from Titus's vault. Letty shares the details of her dream with Tick, minus the part about her being pregnant. They wonder how they're able to have the same dream and realize Hannah may be trying to send them a message or a warning. If Hannah was able to escape with the Book of Names, and it's still out there, Tick and Letty will have a distinct advantage over Christina, if they can locate the book. Next, we see Sammy, who is cooking breakfast. This is the first time Montrose has allowed Sammy to spend the night. Montrose's warm demeanor quickly fades as they sit to eat breakfast. Sammy accuses Montrose of pushing him further away the closer they get. He gets up to leave, but Montrose runs after him to apologize, just as Letty and Tick arrive to his apartment. Awkward. Atticus learns that his father is indeed gay and calls him the F word. Montrose is enraged at the slur and reminds Tick that he is still his father and demands respect. Atticus wants to know if his mother Dora knew Montrose was gay, and he admits that she did. Letty stays behind to get the information from Montrose about how he tracked down Dora's family. She has a cousin in St. Louis who also survived the Tulsa riots. She heads out to relay that info to fuming Tick. All throughout his childhood, Montrose would whoop him, claiming that it was so Atticus wouldn't be soft. Tick feels his lifetime of drama was a result of Montrose living a lie. Letty suggests they head over to Hippolyta and borrow Woody to drive to St. Louis and find the Book of Names. Over at Hippolyta's, she's packing up Woody and heading out. Ruby is there to babysit Diana while she's gone. Tick and Letty walk up just in time to catch her heading out. They try to ask to borrow Woody, but Hippolyta aggressively denies them and pulls off for what she claims is a guidebook trip. They'll have to take the bus to St. Louis now. Tick offers to go alone so that Letty can stay and talk to her sister. Inside, Letty and Ruby talk for the first time since their big fight. Letitia apologizes for not telling her about the money. Ruby said their mother never apologized, so maybe she isn't that bad. But Ruby knows everything about the Order of the Ancient Dawn and the Book of Names, so she may just be pretending to forgive Letty to glean information for Christina and her pursuit for Hiram's Ori. Hippolyta is on the road, listening to Josephine Baker's cover of Piel Canela. It means brownish skin. She's heading to Mayfield, Kansas, with the coordinates from the Ori written on her map. A black woman biker passes her on the road, much to Hippolyta's delight. She also has a page from Corinthia Blue along with her. Atticus has made it to St. Louis and is having dinner with Mrs. Ellsbury, a friend of Dora's cousin Ethel, the other survivor of the Tulsa massacre. He inquires about the Book of Names, but she tells him that those white folks burned everything in the massacre. Meanwhile, Hippolyta has made it to the coordinates in Mayfield and approaches an observatory. Back in Chicago, Letty and Diana are playing spades. Diana's friends didn't even make board, which is an automatic loss. The boy who lost asks when Bobo is coming back because he knew how to play. Poor Emmett Till. Letty heads to the kitchen to check on Ruby, who is preparing dinner. Ruby is being evasive about where she's been staying and who she's been staying with. She changes the subject to Atticus, who has been staying with Letty rent-free, attempting to find out where he went and why. She invites Letty to taste the food, but the garlic immediately makes her nauseous. She's definitely pregnant. She heads to Hippolyta's bedroom window to get some air and sees the Ori. Back in St. Louis, Tick is looking through Mrs. Ellsbury's photo album when he sees a mark on the arm of his cousin Ethel. He checks himself in the mirror and sees the same marking on his back. The phone rings. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was JR. But it's Letty who informs Tick that Hippolyta had the Ori this whole time. They deduce that she must know they lied about the details of Uncle George's death. Letty mentions the coordinates engraved on the Ori, and if she's following it, they may be leading her into danger. Ruby overhears this conversation through a crack in the door. At the observatory in Mayfield, Hippolyta enters to see a powered-down device attached to what looks like a powerful telescope. This is Hiram Epstein's machine. It has the same inscription as the Ori, coordinates, and the words. Every beginning is in time, and every limit of extension in space. Hippolyta places the key from the Ori into the slot and powers up the machine. Mass, rotation, velocity, and radius are the variables she's working with for several hours as we see her scribble down more permutations. Just as she is beginning to figure out the machine, we hear someone enter. Captain Lancaster has police officers guarding the observatory. We know from episode 3 that Lancaster and Hiram worked together to capture and experiment on Negroes in Chicago. Lancaster has been searching for the Ori just like Christina, so it makes sense that he'd be keeping an eye on the observatory that houses his machine. Hippolyta tries hiding, but the officers quickly find her. They demand to know who she is and how she was able to turn the machine on. They pull a gun on her, but Atticus shows up just in time to fight off the two officers. As the melee ensues, one officer tries to shoot Tick while he's fighting the other, but Hippolyta knocks his arm away and the bullet hits the machine. The machine is going wild and opens up a portal that's shifting between different points in time and space. Tick throws one officer into the portal and Hippolyta shoots and kills the other. Before they can even assess the gravity of killing a police officer, Hippolyta is suddenly pulled into the portal and Atticus dives after her trying to save her. We see her pulled into a void of purple light and then she's transported. We see a set of coordinates on the bottom of the screen for the first time and she lands on what looks like a cold, desolate version of Earth. There's nothing on the surface but a futuristic structure, which two unidentified beings emerge from. They approach her as a blinding light envelops the screen. We get new coordinates, and Hippolyta is lying naked in an all-white room with futuristic devices implanted into her wrists. She gets dressed and tries to leave, but there is a force field preventing her from walking out of the room. Then, a celestial being with 4C hair enters the white room. "Who are you? What are you?" she asks. And the being simply replies, "I am," which is also the title of this episode. The 4C celestial leaves Hippolyta, but lets her know that she is not in a prison before walking away. A hysterical Hippolyta bangs on the door and smashes her wrist device while calling for help. We see the coordinates change again, the last set of digits representing the shifts in time. As time goes by in this white room, the last set of numbers on the coordinates continue to change. She tries to figure out where she is and what is going on. She deduces that there is a slight shift in gravity, which could mean she is in the future or on a spaceship. Eventually, she takes apart the table and uses the pieces from inside to get to the circuitry that operates the door. Before she can escape, the 4C Celestial repels her back and reminds Hippolyta that she is not in a prison. She commands her to name herself and where she wants to be. Lyta has no idea what the fuck she's talking about. But as the being persists, eventually Hippolyta declares she wants to be dancing on stage in Paris with Josephine Baker, who she was listening to on her drive up to the observatory. As she makes her declaration, all of the coordinates change, not just the time digits on the end. She is transported to Paris and is dancing on stage in Paris with Josephine Baker. Hippolyta has the ability to move through time and space by declaring who she is. Though she does a poor job in her first dance performance, she gets a pep talk from Josephine Baker and eventually gets comfortable. The time coordinates change again, and we see a montage set to Lady Marmalade of Hippolyta living free and uninterrupted in Paris as one of Josephine Baker's dancers. She has a heart-to-heart with Josephine, where they both lament about feelings of emptiness and anger inside because of the freedoms they've been robbed of as Black women. Josephine Baker feels like the stars in space, magnificent, ancient, and already extinguished. Hippolyta feels like she's become the exact kind of Negro woman white folks want her to be, like they found a way to lynch her without her noticing the noose. She's furious about being held back her whole life and admits sometimes she wants to kill white folks. In her next declaration, all the coordinates change and she's transported again. This time, she is in an alternate Earth where a group of Black women are tribal leaders and warriors. She trains for a battle with a great warrior named Naui. Naui is monologuing about how all their lives these women were lied to about how they were free, when they were only free to be wives and mothers. Freedom of a well-kept slave. As the time coordinates shift, we see Hippolyta's battle skills improve until she is eventually able to best Naui in battle and win a warrior's crown. She leads her soldiers into battle against an army of white men dressed in colonial attire. The battle is set to fire by Mother's finest. The warrior women are outnumbered and appear to have inferior weapons compared to the white men who have guns, knives, and rifles. Despite this, the army of queens slaughter the white vanguard with ease. Hippolyta viciously decapitates one of the soldiers and follows it up with a speech about freedom. They are free to hate when they must, free to kill when they must, and free to bring destruction when they must. She declares herself again, but this time as Hippolyta, George's wife. She transports to Chicago in bed with an alive Uncle George. They are reunited and she explains the whole ordeal with the White Room, the 4C being, and all the adventures she's had traveling through time, space, and alternate versions of Earth. George is flattered that with all her options, she chose to name herself his wife. But this reminds her of the reality that's been eating at her, how small she was made to feel by society holding her back. She comes to grips with the fact that in her marriage with George, he enabled her to shrink herself. George admits as much and realizes that his efforts to protect her and build a family with her were complicit in her shrinking. He sees her now and wants her to be as big as she can be. She declares herself again, Hippolyta, Discoverer, and uses the device in her wrist to bring George along with her on her journey through the multiverse. They travel to different planets on a spaceship resembling Woody and meet alien life forms as the words of Sun Ra play in the background. She meets with the 4C being again, and she tells her that now that she has named herself, they can fully integrate her into their society. She no longer needs the devices on her wrist to travel through the multiverse, but she ultimately decided to go back to her Earth because her daughter Diana needs her there. We see the purple void again and transport back to Earth and the Mayfield Observatory. Atticus falls out of the portal with a book in his hand. It's the Lovecraft Country novel written by George Freeman. As the sound of sirens grow closer, he grabs the key from the Ori and leaves in a hurry. But underneath the body of the dead officer is the cover of Corinthia Blue, signed by Diana Freeman. And that's how the episode ends. Whew. Okay, what just happened? Let's break down what we can. Letty and Tick had the same dream about Hannah escaping the burning Braithwaite Lodge, but in Letty's version, she is pregnant, which could be a sign that she is pregnant with Atticus's baby, also supported by her getting sick from the smell of garlic Ruby was cooking with. Speaking of Ruby, Christina revealed to her everything. She knows all about Hiram's stolen pages from the book of names she's after, and the transformation potion she developed from the blood of the corpses of William and Dell. Ruby may be spying on Tick and Letty on behalf of Christina. And now she knows the Ori is at Hippolyta's house. Montrose and Sammy's relationship was discovered by Tick, and Montrose admits that his mother Dora knew he was gay. Letty is staying with Ruby at Hippolyta's place to try and rebuild their relationship, while Atticus is heading to St. Louis to track down the complete book of names to learn the spells and how to cast them. Hippolyta knows that the circumstances of her husband's death told to her are a lie, and after figuring out the proper combination to open the Ori, heads to an observatory in Mayfield, Kansas. There, she is able to use Hiram's time and space machine, but police officers guarding the machine on behalf of Captain Lancaster discover her and interrogate her before Tick shows up to save the day. However, the chaos of the fight causes her to get sucked into the portal, which sends her on a journey of self-discovery and freedom. She travels through time and space to multiple realities, planets, and alternate Earths. Eventually, she gains the ability to name herself and travel without the use of the devices they implanted in her. She's accepted into this society of futuristic celestial beings, but instead of remaining with them and claiming her freedom, she chooses to return home because her daughter Diana needs her. That was a lot. Did we miss anything? Do you have a different interpretation of this episode? We want to hear from you. Leave your comments below, and thanks for watching the Chitlin Circuit.